Good morning. Flood insurance. Great topic. A little timely right now, right, with what's going on in Irma and Harvey. But I'll just give you a brief introduction on myself. I've been an agent 20 years. 5 years ago, we started California Flood Insurance. And what happened was we wrote a little hotel, and the owner said, "Oh, you have to do my flood insurance, right?" You said, "Okay, yeah, no problem, NFIP." And so he gave me these deck sheets, and I said, I've never seen this before. The rates were much lower. And I said, "No, something's not right here. No, you have to do this if you want the policy." So anyway, that was my first introduction into private flood insurance. And at that time, I think we decided that there's a real pain point, right? Elevation certificates, all the things you have to go through the NFIP to get this done. And we thought this might be a good business model. So we went after it. We bought the URL californiafloodinsurance.com, and we started actively marketing. That was about 5 years ago. A year ago, about 2 years ago, we decided, why don't we call Lloyds and see if we could actually become a cover holder with them. And that was a very interesting process. They were interested, and it took about a year, going back to London, meeting with a lot of people, but they liked our idea, mostly because they have a lot of exposure, Lloyds does, in the eastern states, right? Florida's and Louisiana, and there's not many people just doing it in California. So we're on the West Coast, California, Arizona, Washington, and Oregon, predominantly. They like that. And starting in March, we started writing our own policy. Right now, we're in 14 states. Mostly the four is we're writing our own policy, and we're just topped 7,000 policies in force. So it's certainly growing, and it's certainly something that's on the top of people's minds. So just some of the boring stuff, but Barack Obama in 2012 signed the Flood Insurance Reform Modernization Act, right? Otherwise known as the Biggert-Waters. And at that point, there was the big push for private carriers to start sort of jumping in the marketplace. And that's sort of what happened. There was really 6 things that have to happen for a private flood policy to be able to be accepted. And very simply, they have to be licensed by an admitted or non-admitted carrier. This brought into surplus lines insurance into the mix. They had to have a 45-day cancel notice. The policy had to be at least as broad as the NFIP policy. There was a strength of a mortgagee clause, and then some legal recourse. So overall, not that difficult. There's certainly today still a real challenge with the government banks sort of understanding that they can actually accept private flood. So if we tell them our policy is, here's our policy, and they say, "Oh, we can't accept that." Why not? Well, because it's not the NFIP. And you're like, "Well, haven't you heard the news?" And some small banks haven't. So there's still a challenge there, but it certainly is growing. For us specifically, or I guess if a question is, well, what's about private flood insurance, like what are some good things about it? One, I would say we don't take elevation certificates. So I'm not sure how many people are brokers here that have to sort of deal with that thing. We're not interested in them. We don't need them. We have a lower waiting period. The NFIP is like 30 days, and we're down as like 15. There's a much broader definition of flood insurance, right? So with the NFIP, there has to be 2 acres or 2 homes, which sometimes can be difficult. Most private carriers don't have the same language, okay? Separate policies for each structure. Private can put multiple on one policy. So there are sort of a lot of benefits. One big one would be higher limits. So if you take a standard homeowner policy, right, you could go up to $250,000 with the NFIP, and then you have to get excess, and that can be a real challenge. Commercials, $500,000. With private, we can write up to $20 million if they like the risk. So talking about what's going on with Harvey and those areas, just sort of a mention. And it's interesting because even, we just got back from NAPSLO, where a lot of the syndicates were there. We met with a lot of our syndicates. And they said, "Hey, with this thing in Harvey, that's probably good for your business, right? We're excited." And actually for us, the answer is no. Like, we don't want the phones calling with people calling that are in non-high-risk zones. So if you know the zoning, right, an X zone is supposed to be not much risk. Now, Mother Nature doesn't know if it's an X zone or an A zone, right? She goes where she wants to go. But those are the NFIP offers a policy that's like $400, $250,000 in coverage, $100,000 in contents. That's a lot of work for not a lot of money. And as soon as the news, we stop covering Irma, they call and want to cancel that policy. So for us, we are actually looking for people in high-risk zones, A zones, AE, the 1% chance. That is actually our market. We're doing, there's a lot of residential, and of course now the commercial is a growing sector with homeowner associations and larger commercial. Up in your area, San Rafael, Marin, San Jose, Milpitas, these are all really big areas. The technology today with private flood is growing. We have some really cool technology that is really how this is really going, it's making this happen. So as you know, the NFIP, a lot of people are being subsidized, right? So if you take San Jose, now of course they say it never rains in California. We know that we had the Oroville Dam, right, issue. We had a pretty big claim there. Thank God it wasn't on my paper. But it was on someone else's. But it certainly can, and it does rain in California. The mapping is such that they're getting so precise that you can really take a home, 2 homes. So if we take this building right here, and on this side that we're all in an A zone, and this side is a home, and that side, we literally can drill down to each home and say this home is a horrible risk. It literally is water's going to flow right to it. And this home over here, we could see a wall of 20 feet, and we could say this is a really good risk. And the NFIP can't do that, right? Plus, it's hard for them because they need everyone in this room to pay the premiums to subsidize the program. Now, if you're watching the reauthorization that's going on now, what the NFIP is in $25 billion in debt. Who knows what's going to happen after they start totaling these losses in Texas and Florida. There is a need for private flood insurance. The bill is up now. They're talking about it. I suspect that they'll continue the privatization of it. I'm not politically connected to that stuff. But if someone asks my opinion, I think what they're going to do, or they need to do, is they need to get private companies will continue to come in, and they need to build some form of a risk pool for people who continually flood. I was watching news in my office during Harvey, and there was a gentleman in his like strip mall store, and he said, "This is the 5th time this has happened to me." And I was just shockingly sitting there thinking, the 5th time, why are we still paying out for that? Right? We're all paying for that in some aspect. So I think there's going to be a lot of changes there. And that's really about it. I'll expect some questions after. Some people might have some questions about what's happening with Harvey and people. I just would mention, just like the earthquake situation, and people really need to consider buying even those policies that we don't want to write. They really need to do that, and hopefully after Harvey, there's some real thought that goes into, and some of these families can find a way to do that, because there's going to be some really hurt people down there. Everyone's seen the photos, and there's so many. I don't have the statistic yet, but how many thousands and thousands do not have insurance. So I'm not sure what they're going to do for help, but hopefully people in the future will learn from that and get some coverage. That's it. Thank you very much.